Coming to you live from sunny Arizona. The Steve Rude Show is now live.
Hello, this is the Steve Rude Live Hour, if I can at least last an hour. Otherwise, it's about 20 minutes as we try to hold your attention while I talk about cool stuff going on with various things. We've recruited a partner here to help me with a live stream in case my voice goes out, which it sounds like it already is. But she looks like she's pretty nervous, which she's always been. Hound Dog here is a rescue from Arizona. She was found underneath a car in the middle of summer with her brothers, which we have never met because those people never get back to us. Take a hike, Hound Dog. Today we're going to be talking about some pretty cool stuff right here, but we're going to go through the usual measures of making announcements that are vital to keeping things financially workable here. We're not getting many new Patreon members in, which causes me to have to take another jobs because I can't work on Nexus without support from the fans out there. So let me get to the announcements right here. We've got this big thing that we're doing right now called the Nexus Return to Earth Studio Preview Edition, and that is for Patreon members, suitably so, where we feature all the in-progress pages that are going into this over 100-page story called Return to Earth. And we're also going to include the script, thumbnails, costume designs, things like that, model sheets that I've recently done. All that is going to make up the book, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. What's written here is a walkthrough of the story page by page with behind-the-scenes commentary. It's they kind of think of it like coming into my studio and being able to take it home after chatting with me for a while. And we're going to be giving away a free sketch for those that are interested in ordering that. And that studio edition can be found at steverude.com/RTE, which means Return to Earth. Clever, huh? No new Patreon members. We have another copy of the How to Draw a Nexus book. The page count is now up to 134. We're also in the middle of something that you probably know about by now if you've been staying tuned right here. Hello, Whippet. And that is the How to Draw Figures the Steve Rude Way. And something very interesting happened the other day. The work involved to make this book worthy of publication was so stressful to me that my mind actually shut down for a day. I couldn't think of anything. This probably happened 2 or 3 times in my lifetime when I've just worked too hard at something and had to back off so I could recover my brain again, which is always a dubious thing to begin with. So we've got the How to Animated book, which you guys have seen, and we've got the Steve Rude How to Draw the Figure Drawing book coming out. Here's a preview of that cover. That's what it looks like. We've changed a few things about it. We've added tons of new pages to make sure you get a complete look at how this thing is coming about. But within the book, it looks something like this. You know, like I'm gonna hold this up over here so we can see it properly, okay? So essentially the book is showing how to draw figures. So we've got all these different examples of guys doing this and guys doing that. And of course, the very first fundamentals that involve these things right here. Now, the way I teach this stuff is different from most people. Those of you that know me finally heard this find this hardly surprising here. The way I start is with this, the fully rendered male figure. But before you can do this, there's a few more steps we have to go through here. One is something called the essence. And that's just a word that I used to describe the absolute minimal of lines that you can write, you can mark down to get an idea of what your figure is going to eventually look like. I've been practicing this for years. I've taken drawings from master artists and broken them down to literally something as simple, if not more simple than this, to figure out where I'm going with something. And if it works in this stage, then it's going to work in this stage. After the essence, after something I call the essence, we go to what everyone knows as the mannequin. And the mannequin is really the secret formula behind learning how to draw figures, especially in your imagination. Because if you can conceive of something in your head, you need to put it down somehow. And before you go to the crazy lengths that involve something like this, you break it down to something simple and doable. And that involves learning how to draw mannequins. The mannequins have to be in proportion. You have to know foreshortening and all the other things in perspective that go with putting any object in a picture plane. As a matter of fact, the book that we're doing on figure drawing, you probably recognize this from how to draw the animated version. This was on the cover of that. Well, for the how to draw the figure, I thought I'd plus it a little bit and do another version which is fully rendered in paint. So there is that. That's going to be in the figure drawing book. My sketchbook fell apart the other day, spontaneously combusted. I have no idea how I did that. It's not like I threw it against a wall or anything. I just picked it up one day and it was gone. It just disintegrated. And so I have to work with something like this right here, which is going to further disintegrate within moments of picking it up. No idea why. You ready for letters? We always want to go into letters. August 23rd, this week's comments from you guys. Don Mangus wrote in, and he was asking a question about the Nexus animation. Now, what's interesting to me is that, and unbeknownst to me, is that one of our Mr. Producer informed me the other day that we're getting a lot of hits on different platforms for with interest in the animated Nexus, which, as you know, is something I've worked on for closing in on 40 years, with no one seriously making offers to be part of it with me. So Don asks, how many minutes of animation have you completed? I'm amazed at your drive and ability to create so many illustration genres. How many minutes of animation have I completed? Well, we started with the 3 minutes that we did about 15 years ago that you see on YouTube. That's what I completed before I took a break on this project. But I can tell you that along with doing the animation, which are based on the layouts that I do for this show, you guys know what layouts are? Look it up. Those are the things that I'll be showing you actually later on as to what the purpose is in animated cartoons. If you were to stack all the work that I've done on the Nexus cartoon for all these years, since I began it in 1988, you would go from this hand right here to about there. So that's like, what, 4 or 5 feet of paper? That is literally what I've done so far. And the fun part for me is that even though there's no show, I keep working on it because I'm having such a good time doing that. And I'm also getting used to animating my own characters through all the books that I have on reading about how to animate and looking at my shows in freeze frame. So the amazing thing about things like YouTube and the things I have on there about learning is that they're not making books obsolete, but they're almost making schools obsolete. If you really want to learn something, it's all there to learn for free. Pretty incredible. And that's what I'm taking advantage of to further my education on the fundamentals of animation, because they all break down to fundamentals. All the things you see on the 10 principles or 12 principles, they what's the word I'm looking for? See, my brain isn't working yet. They apply to every single thing you do. No matter what you do in animation, those rules apply to some part of what you may be drawing to make something move in animation. Which is no surprise to me, because I'm always harping on fundamentals and basics in how to draw, period. Okay, so that answers the question about the Nexus cartoon show. So we get a lot of comments on a guy that expresses his thoughts like this. I enjoy your honest portrayal of the process. It's nice to see you work through stuff, make mistakes, and then work to fix the mistakes, rather than pretending that you just do everything exactly as planned all the time. Some guy named Mark says, I haven't been drawing as long as you. A few have, but the tighter pencil helps me ink better too. Glad to hear it. Stigny in 360. This must be a dark character here from the underworld. Like many talented people at his level, and frankly yours as well, some artists can suffer fools lightly. I think it's can't suffer fools lightly, which would be true. The older you get, the less you can suffer them. However, you never know where someone is on their artistic journey and how much steam they have in the tank to power through the terrible drawings to get to the good stuff. He also brings up Neil Adams, the great late Neil Adams, whom I talked about last week in the live stream. And he goes, I heard stories about how Neil was particularly rough on Frank Miller in his earliest days before the stuff he was known for. I've heard that story too. And what I mentioned last week was how bizarre it was that I ever escaped any kind of attack from Neil Adams on anything I did. He looked at what I did and said, he found ways for me to push it farther. And that goes way back to Nexus Black and White #3 with the flexi disc. He was nothing but helpful. This might be a good time to bring up something that artists always say that I happen to think is the worst possible advice you can give them. And that is, all artists need to get through the first 1,000 terrible drawings to be good. Now, why do I hate that phrase? So, for guys starting out, they have to know that they have 1,000 terrible drawings left to do first before they can ever get good. What kind of incentive is that, except to quit? Apparently there's a book out, because I'm always referencing Twilight Zone. This guy says there's a book out called Everything I Need to Know I Learned in the Twilight Zone. And he goes, I love your old school values. Bobby Gillis. This guy, we were talking last week about how I was rushing things with the latest Nexus artwork, and it was proving to be a detriment. So I had to work that out in slow down. But this guy says I tend to rush with everything now. Life just moves so fast that I expect my drawing to move fast too. And it's become a problem in that everything has become a sketch. Slowing down is pretty tough for me. Well, that's honest, and that's exactly what I'm going through right now, that I have to find a way to solve. This guy was helpful glad for the advice of putting ink over Dr. Martin Pro White, which is just straight gouache. It turns it into mud. So I'm glad to hear about that. Using gouache for corrections, he writes here. Oh, this is Steve Legg that wrote this, my colorist, excellent colors from a lot of previous Nexus projects. Using gouache over corrections is my personal pet peeve as far as things I learned about making comics as a kid that turned out to be wrong. Well, we're shocked by that. Comments from previous videos, in case you missed out. This guy this guy says he walked into an advertising agency in Burbank when I was in high school in the late 80s. I don't remember the outcome, but Neil Adams, when I met him at the agency, was very nice and encouraging. Great to hear that. This guy with a unpronounceable name, like most of them here, nice to hear advice from a professional, not some YouTube amateurs. Thank you, Mr. Rude. There are a share of amateurs on YouTube, and you know who they are, and you know the ones to avoid. There's probably more people that are superb at what they do that I myself tune into to learn more about my craft. And okay, this guy writes in about with an animation question here. He goes, "Could you introduce some good resources for some people who want to get into 2D animation, please?" Absolutely. I mentioned this book on and off throughout the last few live streams when we were talking about animation. But let me go grab the book that I think is the very best. Wait right there and I'll be right back. Now that I've grabbed it, I'm happy to show it off to you. This book was put out in 2002, and a friend of mine actually bought this for me. It's by Richard Williams, called The Animators Survival Kit. There's the cover, there's the back cover, and within these 350 pages is literally everything that I think, if I ever asked a question about animation, the answer would be contained in this book. And he does it in a very simple way, knowing that before he passed on, everything he did, just like the books that I'm putting out in figure drawing and how to animate the Nexus cartoon, have to be as simple, with very simple advice scattered throughout the book. So he starts out with the absolute basics. And let's see where he goes on to. He goes on to walks and all the other stuff. And that includes literally every subject, every category in between the major stuff is in here. How to stand up, how to point your finger. You need to go with something called anticipation before you point. You don't go like this, you go like that. And somehow the movement looks much more natural and it reads better. So this is the book to get right here, my friend. You can't go wrong with it. I would know. Couple final comments here. Love your no-nonsense approach, Steve the Dude. And another animation comment here. I'm glad hand-drawn animation isn't dead. Not while I'm alive, it's not. It won't be. I'd love to see utilized more in high production media or even small production. The things that he's asking about are entirely determined by the person who has the will to do it. Nothing else gets done unless it's done through someone who is determined to make something happen. In my case, and wanting to make the Nexus cartoon show look just like the old HB cartoons, even while we're using all the latest stuff to help make the workload easier, it will. That's the whole goal. That's been the goal for 40 years, is to make it look like those cartoons that no one has ever attempted to bring back since 1966. And Johnny Quest, if you don't know, came out in 1964 when I was 8. Johnny Quest was a show the entire family would sit around in the living room at 6:30 or 7, take a hike Whippet to watch the show on our little black and white TV set. Incredible when I think about it, when I think back. Let's migrate, before we get into the latest pages I've done, on Nexus Return to Earth, the thing I'm having to put aside while I make money somehow. Let's actually go over to the animation desk, and I'm going to show you some of the many dozens of scenes that I've done and animated for that show. at the Doug Wiley animation desk. So follow me over there. Hello, Hound Dog. I'm going to show you the process that all animators work with, and starting with something I happen to conceive of in my head, and once I get an idea, I want to put it down in paper. And the idea for this one is, I was thinking of the old show Kung Fu, where you snatch something from somebody's hand. Don't worry, he's not going to be snatching a pebble. It'll be something else that he needs. And this is Nexus as in his normal human guise, Horatio Hellpop. So, if we can bring the camera in pretty tight here, this is the way it works. I do a layout of this and this. He's standing there, and he ends up snatching the thing from somebody's hand. Whippet, you're a puppy and nothing but trouble. So the idea is to go from here to there. So first of all, you do something called anticipate, and that lets the audience know in a solid way that never fails what he's about to do. So before he goes backwards, he goes forward, okay? And to get there, we need in-between drawings. You animals are driving me nuts. So there's a very brief in-between right there that goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, and we end up at 5. And if I roll this right here, if you guys can actually see some of this here, that's the way it's going to look when it's finally animated. I can only do this a couple at a time, unlike other guys that just... But I think you get the idea right here. Nice to meet you, Whippet. This is Whippet. She's nothing but trouble because she's 1. So can you see that right there? He takes his hand away. He moves his elbow down, and everything works like a figure in motion would work. Look the fingers, and it goes from there to there. And so that's 5 drawings right there. Now we have to get to here. So we go from this, drawing number 1, to this, which comes out to drawing number 5 when you add the in-betweens. And then we've got to get to here. Well, how do we get to here? Well, we do it the same way I just showed you here. He goes instantly from this position to a very fast, no in-between snatch. Okay? There goes Whippet. And he, with the fastest motion imaginable in animation, and I've seen this work, it's incredible. You go from here to here, here to here. So here, snatch here, snatch here. And then he's got to settle in because he doesn't just stop in mid-motion. He has to settle into a pose. So what I've got here are an extra 3 drawings to make him go from here to there. You see the arm changing right there, and him becoming more upright. You have to put these basics in to make animation look good. And when I didn't know what I was doing, and I knew nothing about basics, I just thought if I drew it any way I thought would work, it would work, but it doesn't work at all. You have to know these things. They work every time, and now that I've learned them, I put them in every time, so they work. If we move Nexus out of the way, I've got one more to show you. One of a beautiful girl that we all know is Sundra Peel. This is Sunny Honey. I had this idea that I wanted to do something, just a headshot, because in animation there are hundreds of times where you show close-ups of heads moving and talking. So I started with that. And then I thought, well, let's go all the way and animate her eyes closing and opening. And that would be like this. See that moving? That motion? She's like this, and then she goes from there to there. And then she opens them. She goes backwards and opens them again. And what we have here is another head movement, because if you just have the head I notice in all my cartoon shows that do this, you need to have the head moving in some way, because people, they don't stay still when they talk. They gesture and they move around a little bit. So what you need is other drawings of just the slightest different head positions based on what she's saying and the emotion that she's going through here. So for that, I went from this to this. For this drawing right here, I wanted to add mouths, and this is much more tricky than you think it is. If you look at a lot of HB cartoons, the Disney ones are obviously perfect because they paint well, but this is something where they would always have them normally in the wrong position in the face. They would be over here or up here or down here, and they wouldn't make the jaw move. And Johnny Quest went the extra mile to make the jaw move. Other cartoons got lazy and didn't do that, but can you see how her mouth changes right there? Her teeth have to stay in the same place, according to this drawing right here. The upper teeth don't move. So I've got to do all these mouth charts here that show different mouth positions. V, E, O with a tongue, and ooh. Ooh, that looks good. And then we finally get back to here. So I've covered all the major mouths that need to go into her, and that's just one of the small things I do in the eventuality of getting my show made. Let's move over to the drawing desk here, and we're going to go over what I've been doing with the Nexus Return to Earth pages. So that's going to wrap it up for this week on Steve Rude's live stream. The letters are very helpful for me to know what you're thinking and what's being said on my end that's interesting to you. I'm happy to talk about anything you want to, even stuff that goes beyond art. So let me know about that. Me and the Hound Dog over there are going to say goodbye. Some partner you were. And till next week, I'll look forward to seeing what you're going to turn in. And remember, we have these very important fundraisers going on that you can look up on the Steve Rude website. I'm supposed to drink more water, so cheers. I'll see you next week.